Welcome back to the history of rock. His name is Shim. He's the rock star.
His name is Brandon. He's the DJ.
Class is in session. We did a whole remix episode last week, and it didn't record any of my microphone. Hence the reason nobody's ever going to hear it.
We're gonna get a new one happening right now, but we might. It was a long one. We were fleshing out, knocking the dust off. So hopefully we'll say, all right, we're gonna keep it nice and tight. That's what she said, and we're gonna start talking about some interesting stuff. Firstly, going with the difference between a particular subject versus Australia and the US. Yep. Australia viewed this first subject very differently than the US did. So why don't you take the lead on it, Brandon?
So, Jackass debuted about 22 years ago. It ran from October 1st, 2000 to August 12th, 2001. It was, this thing was so big here in the States. It's so weird to hear that there was only 3 seasons, 8 episodes, 9 episodes. So there's 25 total episodes of this show. That was it. Do you really think that the world needs more Jackass episodes? Is that what you think? Well, no, we got the movies, so I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay. All right. So the general question is, was it as popular in Australia as it was in the States? The answer is not really. So I've thought about this before we started the episode, because let me ask you this. When it came out in the US, what would you say was the US's feedback on the show? What was the feedback?
Obviously for me, I was 20 years old when the show debuted, and it was right up my alley of this is hilarious. And one of the things that we'll get to kind of later on is that we had a closer connection in the city of Portland, Oregon, because there was a lot of scenes that were filmed in Portland, Oregon, because some of the guys were from the area. So that kind of even added a little bit more. But, this thing was huge. For that demographic where kids like me, a 20-year-old dipshit, just loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was one of the biggest things you could have.
And you looked up to these guys. Would that be fair? You looked like...
I don't know if I looked up to them, but we definitely had our ideas on, hey, we could go do some stuff like this.
Okay, so that leads me to my point, which is the way that, for all the Australians in the audience, please, for everyone, be sure to like, subscribe, click all the stuff down there, and comment in the comment in the YouTube chat if you're an Australian listening what your opinion was on Jackass, because from what I can recall, the general consensus was this was around the time that reality TV really started. So we had, up until then, we had Seinfeld, we had Friends, we had, the general, the sitcoms and the drama shows of here's what it's like to live in America. Here's what it's like to be a young person or a young adult in America.
Yeah.
And in Australia, we have no reference point. Then reality TV starts to come in, YouTube starts to come in, and we're like, oh, there's a couple of reality shows of Survivor and this and that. And we're like, oh, maybe that's what people... And then Jackass happens and everyone unanimously went, oh, that's what people are really like in the States. That's what Americans are like. Because it was the first time that you saw people without all the makeup and without all the writing and without all the glitz and glamour. It was just we're just going to start filming and just do what we do, man. And the real world, that didn't happen in Australia. That was an MTV thing. MTV, it wasn't as big in Australia as it was in the States. We had our own version of MTV. So the whole real world reality thing, we didn't see that. The first thing we saw was Jackass, simply because it was polarizing. People were like, it's like America's Funniest Home Videos on steroids.
What did Young Shim
we
think
literally,
of it? What did Young Shim think of it?
I thought I was disappointed. I was really disappointed because I thought there were people in Australia. See, here's the problem, right? Australia likes to poo-poo on poo-poo. Yeah, I said it. Australia likes to talk down about America, about Americans, about the general culture of things. I remember, this is how I'll explain to you.
You like to look down your big old fancy Aussie noses at us, huh?
Exactly. My godfather, before he passed, he used to make fun of the way you guys chop your food up. The first thing that I remember ever about American culture was, because he'd been over there a few times for work, In Australia, knife and fork, food's there. Slice a bit off, eat it. Slice another bit off, eat it. You guys chop the whole plate up, put the knife down, and then just stab the food and put it in your mouth, right?
Who does
It's a different
that?
way of eating. There's a lot of people in America that they chop up the food, like
Are you talking
pancakes,
like
steak, whatever.
Really?
Anything. There's apparently this is. I'm not saying this is a fact. I'm saying this is what I was told. The point is that he was saying it like they're crazy over there. They chop it all up so that the whole plate just gets cold, whereas we do it this way so that the steaks. It was so fucking small. It was so small and petty, and I was like, and I remember thinking that doesn't sound like it matters. That doesn't sound like a big deal. But the fact that he was like, can you believe this is just another example of how they're just kind of weird and kooky, and Jackass came out, and I was like, no, Americans are awesome. Friends, fucking Seinfeld, all the shit that I said before.
All the sitcoms, yeah.
All the sitcoms, all the movies, all the culture, all the music. Fuck the music, God forbid. But the problem was that there was a culture coming up in Australia which was like, our children don't know what it means to be Australian anymore. This American TV is raising our entire youthful generation, which was totally true, but there was no problem with that.
Did that mean that you guys forgot what it was like to be criminals? Because I assume that's all Australia was.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
a good one.
Criminals.
That's a good one.
So they're like,
really
we forgot how to be this because we're watching all these American shows.
Yeah, they noticed that we were rounding our R's at the end of sentences, but they didn't notice that all the B and E's went down. All the break and enders suddenly went down. They were like, no, they're talking funny.
They ain't got our accents.
So yeah, that's when Jackass came out, I was like, oh fuck. Like, I was hoping that the thing that blew up out of America would be a bit more sophisticated. You know, and that's all Australia thought. The only thing Australia thought was, oh, we were right. Those Americans are a bunch of idiots. And they bummed me out because I'm like, exactly. And the problem is, that's why I asked you, what was the feedback? And you were like, yeah, we thought it was awesome. I thought you were going to be like, well, you know, a bunch of fucking idiots, not really good representations. But
because for us, it wasn't, they weren't representing America. This was just a small portion that was my demographic.
They were.
Well, not to us.
You don't realize.
No,
that show was massive.
Yeah. To you guys, it was. But in that moment at that time, that's not what I was thinking of. Because we would do crap like that, but we wouldn't film it. Like all that crazy shit. Like there was, there's one time where we did film it, and I remember we were hanging out at my buddy Blair's apartment, and I just had my parents' old VHS or their old camcorder, and we just kind of filmed us hanging out. And there wasn't anything scandalous or really crazy, but Blair lived on the second floor, and I decided I'm going to jump off your balcony, and I'm going to run around. I'm going to run around to the front. So I did. So they filmed me. I'm hanging off of the deck, and then I jumped down. I remember the second my feet hit the ground, the downstairs neighbor's lights flipped on. And I was like, oh, shit. So then I start running, and then you make like 5 seconds later, the camera turns around, and I come busting in the front door. And I was like, oh, my God, the neighbor's lights turned on. I think they're angry.
Yeah. How old were you?
20, 21. This time, it was right around like exactly what was going on here. So let's give a quick rundown here for Jackass.
Okay, cool.
This is more specifically for the TV show, not the movies and sort of the others. Because even some of the other stuff that came up after the fact, I was hooked on that, like Viva La Bam and Wild Boys, and things like that. I owned all those on DVD. I don't know if I still do or not, but that stuff was awesome. But it all started with Johnny Knoxville. His real name is Philip John Clapp. You can see why he changed his name to Johnny Knoxville. He was doing a
great name, by the way. Johnny Knoxville is one of the best fucking stage names ever.
Yeah. So he was doing an article about testing various self-defense equipment on himself. At the time, no magazines were willing to do it because of the liability concerns. Like he was using like the taser, pepper spray. At one point, he was shooting himself with a .38 caliber pistol because he was wearing a bulletproof vest. But
with his own hand, or he got someone else to shoot him?
I think somebody else did. I can't remember that one. But that's really how it all started. But no magazines wanted to put it in there because of liability concerns. Yeah,
that sounds about right. Yeah. Okay, sorry, that makes perfect sense.
That's where you're next.
Big Brother, I know. Big Brother, a skateboard magazine, convinced Knoxville to do it and film it. So, of course, skateboarders. That makes perfect sense. Jeff Tremaine, who would become one of the driving forces behind Jackass, was an editor for Big Brother. So now I'm confused. I wanted to ask you about that. Big Brother was the name of the TV show over here. That's the same thing. Big Brother in America. That's what you're talking about, right? No. So what are you talking about when you say Big Brother?
This was a skateboard magazine.
Did you guys have a show called Big Brother?
Yeah, we still do.
Okay, great. Go.
The Big Brother TV show didn't come until way after that magazine, I believe. Let me double check just in case. But yeah, so that was because really the whole thing came about from skate culture. Even though Johnny Knoxville wasn't a skater, but guys like Bam Margera and stuff like that, that's essentially where they came from. So you had the Big Brother magazine, which I'm checking the dates on right now, is Big Brother magazine. This was founded in 1992. And it's a lot of the guys that worked for Big Brother were the guys that moved on to doing stuff on Jackass. At least the Big Brother American version started back in 97.
Yeah, which makes sense because the skateboard thing I remember.
That was in Dutch.
All skateboarding culture is just like, hey, what's the craziest trick you can do, and you're definitely going to get hurt while you're trying to figure it out. Yeah. So it's a very short step to Jackass from that.
Yeah. So again, around the same time, Bam Margera, his family and friends, they were doing the CKY videos. Which, do you know what CKY stands for?
I don't know what that means.
Camp Kill Yourself is what CKY stood for, and the videos that they were doing was essentially kind of what would become the Jackass videos, where it's just them doing stunts and fucking with each other.
Right. Well, so the show was an immediate hit for MTV. Okay, that was the next question. The show was a hit for MTV. It became #1 just a few months after its debut. How far after the Real World was Jackass? Was it years or was it around the same time?
No, Real World I think was early 90s. Was the first Real World, which would have been New York. That
right. So this shows my ignorance as being an Australian. Real World did not fucking happen in Australia. I got no timeline on that one. So that's so Real World, there was a decade between that and Jackass.
Yeah. Right. So the show did cause a lot of problems for MTV, though, leading the network to assign a representative from OSHA, that's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, to keep the show's cast safe, as well as indirectly prevent anything too dangerous.
Indirectly? I would love to know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall when indirectly happened. Yeah. There was one stunt that seemed to be the tipping point, the vomelette. This I can't read without dry retching, so you'll have to excuse me. In which Dave England, oh, for God's sake, I can't make it. Dave England would eat an omelet, then puke that back into a pan and have Steve-O eat what was in the pan. Yep, I nearly went.
So Jeff Tremaine said that MTV saw it, and they said, well, it doesn't show that you're cooking it to the proper temperature of 160 degrees. Like, that was one of their first main concerns.
Is this real? Is that real? Because that sounds like something that's made up. Is that real?
Well, then you can. Well, I mean, that's probably part of it, but you can go on to the next one here that is even more.
I know. So the authorities were concerned that the stunt depicted, this is the funniest thing, they were worried that it depicted the spread of bloodborne pathogens.
Yeah. That
someone might try this. So what they're effectively saying is, don't try this at home and not cook it.
Yeah.
Try it at home cooking it.
Yeah. So
that's it.
They ended up refilming that scene according to like the OSHA standards and the requirements and everything else. And Tremaine said it really just robbed the show of its spontaneity, because that was one of the leading factors. Because I just thought of this. Something else that was really big back then as well was the Tom Green show. And a lot of what he did, it was the shock value and being in public. And then it eventually would get to the point they couldn't get that reaction from the public because they became famous enough that people knew who they were, so they couldn't get that shock value. Like a lot of that early Jackass stuff, it was going in public and doing something crazy and then filming that and then getting the crowd's reaction to that. Well, it got to the point where they became so big, you couldn't get those reactions.
They couldn't get any people would just be like, hey, they're filming, go, and it's like star catching.
Did Tom Green show make it down there at all?
Yeah, it was just another example of what I already said.
Yeah, no, that's a Canadian thing. That's not the USA, man.
Well, fucking let's place the blame where it belongs.
That goes up north, bitch. I remember the one thing that sticks out to me of the Tom Green show is that he had this friend of his that was on the show with him. And they didn't sign him on, or they couldn't always guarantee that he would be there. But there was this one part where he talked about he was working in a McDonald's or a fast food joint, and he had pissed in the pickle jar, like, tub where he worked. And so he's like, well, I think it's time for payback. So he has this table full of pickle jars. He goes, I peed in one of these. He goes, you need to pick one, and you need to eat out of it. He goes, and I remember he specifically goes, that's better odds than the people that were coming to your fast food joint that day, huh? And he's like, yeah, I guess. So then he starts eating it, and the way that they find out if it was in there is they tip the jar over. It's colored yellow on the bottom. Well, they grabbed the jar that he was eating the pickle out of, and it was yellow on the bottom. And then Tom Green reveals, spoiler alert, he goes, oh, by the way, yeah, I peed in all of these.
Yeah. I was going to say that's what I could see that coming.
Again, I apologize for anybody listening to this and who's just kind of...
And I'm with you. For anyone who's watching that did that facial expression that Brandon just did, I'm with you because I never got into these. I never understood the appeal of this shit. I'm like, I would spend 100% of my time actively avoiding every one of these people if I was there. If they were like, hey, did you know there's a guy that might sometimes possibly piss in the pickle jar? I'd be like, I never want to hear about it again. I'm never going to that restaurant. I'm going to tell everyone to stay away from the whole thing. And instead it's like, no, let's film it and fucking force you to watch it and gag. It doesn't fucking work for me. I've never understood the appeal, man. But this is the funniest part. What I'm about to read, this is the thing that I find fucking hilarious. This ultimately... Sorry, when the Jackass re-recorded the stunt and Tremaine said that it took away the spontaneity, it ultimately led to Knoxville leaving Jackass because he didn't want to do a watered-down version of Jackass. This then led them to making the movie. So Johnny Knoxville's artistic integrity was being compromised, and he just couldn't take it anymore, and he had to go and make his own movies. That's the funniest shit I've ever heard.
No, he didn't go make his own movies. MTV still made the movies. Those were MTV
Well, whatever
movies.
It was, the simple idea that Knoxville can have any concept of artistic, like, oh, this isn't the expression that I really wanted to. No, I'm like, it's all shit, dude. It's all shit. It's all shit. It's not. It's like it's a freak show, and they're like, well, we're not allowed to be as freaky as we were before. Come on, man.
We're gonna make you watch all of it. Oh
no! I'm fucking no. Yeah. I refuse. All right, what's next?
Again,
we want to make sure we don't go over.
Well, yeah, no, hold on, because I have a few notes. See, you got to remember, you don't get the complete show notes. Like, there's other stuff that I have, because I want to make a note here as well. Because, like I mentioned at the beginning, we did have a kind of a special place for Jackass growing up in Portland because Aaron McGeehee and Dave England were from that area. So you'd be watching the show, and you would see, and this is before Portland was known as a popular filming location. Like, generally now there's at least one or two shows that are filmed in the city. Back then that was not a thing, so we always thought it was kind of cool, like, hey, that's downtown, or that's this area, or that's this area that they're filming it. And I started interning in 2001 at the radio station, so Jackass had already kind of had its major run. They were kind of moving on to do other things, and Aaron McGeehee would come into the station pretty frequently. And yeah, he's about as weird as you would think Aaron McGeehee was. Now, fast forward to my time here in El Paso, Steve-O now tours as a comedian, and he would go do a live show. And the two things that I do remember is that one of the guys that would come in and help with the morning show, he's now on the morning show, Nico, he's a comedian, and he opened up for Steve-O the one night. Spoiler alert, Steve-O's set ended with him naked, and he would just kind of tuck the whole Frank and Beans back, and then kind of do the whole Buffalo Bill thing from Silence of the Lambs.
Right. Yeah.
You know when he does that thing. So the crowd doesn't have to see anything, but I still, if I close my eyes, I can still see Nico's face, because as he was coming out to thank the crowd, because this was the finale, he's about 10 feet behind Steve-O, so he's got prime view of the whole deal going on over there. And the look on his face, it was just like, holy shit. Like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, that's the wrong angle.
Yeah. But so Steve-O came into the station. He's a dick. He's a dick. I remember
I was supposed to be surprised?
Really, well, I think there's some people, because he can kind of look like he's got a really good sense of humor. Okay. But yeah, no, he's an asshole. Because I was a big fan. I followed him from Jackass. I followed him from Wild Boys and all of the stuff that he has done. And I wanted to ask him a question, because there's one stunt that he did on Wild Boys where they're with this one tribe, And they have this, like, it looks like an oven mitt that they put on your hand, and it's all inside of it is fire ants. And it's a trial that they do for the men of their tribe. It's how you become a man. You basically put this glove on and you deal with this excruciating fucking pain. So I was asking him about how does that pain compare to some of the other stunts. And I guess the way that I worded it, it came off more like, what's the most painful thing that you've done? And he immediately jumped down my throat. But that's the same question I get from everybody. And it's like, okay, like, cool. Thanks for being an asshole about it. And then then when he was outside the club later that weekend, Nico smoked cigarettes. And as he was out, Nico's not near Steve-O. Now remember, Steve-O's completely sober, nothing at this point. Apparently Nico was close enough that the smoke from his cigarette came within smelling distance of Steve-O, and Steve-O lost his shit. How fucking dare you smoke around me? Put that shit out, you fucking asshole. Get out of here.
Okay.
So there you go. So Steve-O kind of a jerk.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad we know that.
I mean, look, I've said this before. I always like to give somebody at least the benefit of the doubt.
So he got two chances.
Having a bad day. Yeah, and it's like, dude, like,
that's the point.
Like, you're don't be an ass. Like, dude, like, you got famous for stapling your nuts to your leg. Like, go fuck yourself.
But that's the whole thing. That's why I've always found it funny if anyone's expectations are higher. Like, you see the guy who got famous for stapling nuts to legs and go, what do you expect him to be like? He's probably got some suppressed rage issues.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was hoping that he just wasn't going to be a complete asshole, and he really just kind of came off that way. So, but anyway, there's Jackass for you, everybody.
All right.
And we'll cover the movies too, because the movies are great. But we're going to move on here to an Am I the A-hole? And we are.
All right.
We'll cover them. We're going to make Shim watch them, and we're going to film Shim watching the Jackass.
Never going to happen, dude. Never. I value my time.
All right. So we got an Am I the A-hole here, and the headline is, Am I the A-hole for refusing to cancel Mommy and Me yoga? First thoughts.
Okay. Me? I mean, refusing to cancel it. Why? Here's the problem. Is it the mummy that's saying I'm not going to cancel it?
Well, see, this is the problem. It's you're only getting the headlines. And it is. I can tell you, like, yes,
for
it is the mom.
refusing to cancel. I'm going to say no. You're not the a-hole, but I've got a feeling I'm wrong.
You never know. So here you go. Myself and my 3-year-old son are enrolled in Mommy and Me yoga every Saturday. It is very fun and excellent socialization. I don't get much exercise these days. My job is work from home, and all my spare time is spent taking care of my kid and house. So these sessions are important to me. My mom is passing through and said she wants to spend time with me and the little guy. She said she'll get in late Friday night and suggested that she stay over that night and Saturday, then leave early on Sunday. I greenlit those plans. I told her we could get brunch before yoga and then hang out at home for the rest of the day. She requested I skip yoga so we would have more time to hang out. But yoga is how I decompress from the week. I suggested she use the 90 minutes to rest, as she'll probably still be a bit tired from the drive. Or maybe a walk and stretch her legs out. Though there are many options. Mom now said that she isn't going to bother to stop at my house because she'll only be able to visit with us for a few hours. Am I the a-hole?
No, it sounds like your mom's the a-hole, isn't it? I mean, it'd be different if it wasn't the mom. If it was like some... No, it's pretty much... It wouldn't matter, actually. If the person was like... So they really don't care about hanging out with you. They care more about them and their bull... This is the weird thing. It sounds like every time we discuss Am I the a-hole? It's just there's one person that cares more about themselves and their bullshit than another person. That's all it is. Every single time. It'll be like, well, which person in the equation cares about themselves and their bullshit? Whichever one that one is, you're the a-hole.
Yeah? Well,
that's it.
There were some interesting responses over here, and everybody's pretty much agreeing, yes, that this lady is not the a-hole for canceling. And the top response was, not the a-hole. She doesn't get to invite herself, then force you to rearrange your schedule. She should be grateful you can spare her any time at all. And then somebody even responded to that saying, Grandma's not even coming just to visit. She's only stopping by as a part of traveling for her trip. So not only did she invite herself based on the convenience of her own schedule, she expects the mom or the daughter to completely blow up her schedule to accommodate, and she won't come?
Yeah. The smartest thing for the daughter to do is to say, "Bitch, get a life." Just text that, and then go to yoga and see what comes back. Yeah. Not fucking people and their bullshit. Yeah. Especially when you're talking about grandparents. Like if there should be a thing where if you got a grandparent, the mom in the middle should have the right to wear a t-shirt that says, "Bitch, aren't we done yet?" Like, aren't we done with this dynamic where you're the mom and I'm the like, can't we equal out? And maybe you do what I say I need because you've been a mom and you've been there and you know what it's like. So if I need some yoga.
Maybe we make those t-shirts.
Bitch, what did I even just say? Bitch, aren't we done yet?
Yeah, bitch, aren't we done yet?
That's good. I like that. Bitch, aren't we done yet?
Hold on, I gotta write that down. Bitch.
Aren't we done yet? I like that. In the comments section, let us know if that's a good idea for a t-shirt.
Also, let us know if you think that we're wrong or if you agree with the Am I the A-hole scenario. I mean, this one was a little bit easier because a lot of people were agreeing that, the mom is the a-hole here. But I wanted to make sure that I was able to share some of the responses over on Reddit. And if you disagree, because there's some times where, I've done Am I the A-holes before, and then you'll get a random person saying, well, I actually disagree with that. And then it leads to one of the greatest conversations ever because, like, how the fuck do you agree with this other side of this thing?
I like that.
And it's people like that it's like, hey, I like hearing that side of things. You're fucking wrong, but I like hearing that side of it.
That's the thing. This goes back to your argument of like, well, are you? Well, no, they are. This is the thing. Like the idea of people like, no, well, everyone's entitled to an opinion. Yes, but sometimes you're not wrong if you just don't care about people. If you're like, well, she raised that girl and she should. Well, you could look at things that way, or we could move on to 5 fast questions.
Yeah. So I'm willing to agree with that. So make sure you guys are clicking like down below, subscribe, whoever's channel you're on. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or Google, you can always find us over on YouTube. I'm at The Real Brandalorian on YouTube, and then you got Shim, who is at Shimon Moore. You can find these episodes, the full videos up there as well. And if you want to comment directly on the video, then it's going to help us out just that much more. But Shim is right.
Thank you very much for that.
To move on to 5 fast questions. Are you Mr. Shimon? Are you ready, Mr. Shimon Moore?
I am ready. The question is, are you ready?
I am ready. And it is time for 5 fast questions. Shim, you got the questions. I got the answers. Fire away, sir.
What is your biggest regret?
Nothing.
Nothing. What popular saying is total bullshit?
Everything happens for a reason.
What quote changed your outlook on life?
Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. Alan Watts.
Come back to that. What song is stuck in your head right now?
CKY, 96 Quite Bitter Beings, the theme song to Jackass.
You have 10 million for a new home. What's the must-have feature that you build?
A lazy river. And that is 5 fast questions.
I could have sworn you were going to say a urinal. I would have said urinal.
Why? No,
I would have said urinal.
No, because then you got to make don't you have to have like urinal cakes for a urinal because it doesn't actually
Dude,
flush?
If you can afford a $10 million home, you can afford a cleaner.
That just seems like a lot of work. Like I don't want that.
Nah, man.
I don't want to put up with that crap. All right,
hands free, baby.
All right, let's go. Oh my God. I mean, you could technically do that, with a regular toilet. You're still going to make a mess, and if you have the cleaner, then they just
you don't do that in your own home. You don't do that in your own home. You want to be able to hands free. A real man hands free in their own home. That's the truth. Real men have urinals.
You don't do one of
That's
these
a t-shirt right there.
You put your hands on your hips and just kind of lean.
I'll tell you one thing that
and then when you get bored, you kind of sway back and forth.
30 seconds for a total sidebar. Have you ever, I didn't think about this. When you wake up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, do you ever sit down and pee facing forward so that you can rest? You can rest. Think about it. If you sit the other way, you can rest on the back part of the toilet.
Wait a minute. Isn't that, where are your pants?
I guess look, don't get me wrong, I've never tried it. I heard a comedian say this and it was fantastic. But you pull your pants down, you do the usual thing. Instead of turning around and sitting down, you just kind of bend the knees and you land on the toilet, and then you just rest your little head and sort of rest, and you do your wee, and then you get off and go back to bed.
I don't think
it could work.
I think it could work. The problem is, I think any of the toilets in my house, I don't think that the tank is high enough. Like
Maybe.
I would really be like crouched down to try to rest my head on that when it's way easier. And this is a very interesting sidebar because I used to work in a machine shop, and I would use bathroom breaks as a chance to go take naps because we worked really early, and I was hanging out really late with my friends frequently at that time. So I would go into the stall like I was going to the bathroom, and you got your knees on you have your elbows on your knees, and then you just kind of rest it, and hopefully you got the kind of cheekbones here. So
how long would you get?
15 minutes.
For real?
Yeah.
I would assume that would only last like a couple of. As soon as you start to nod off, you're gone. You could go.
No, man,
it's all power nap.
It's all physics, baby. It's all about like if you're angled back too far, you're gonna slip right off. If you're angled too far forward, you can slip like that. Like you gotta. That's what I'm saying. It's all about the cheekbones and like the butt of your wrists, and you gotta lock them in right there. Now the problem was fantastic. My boss, who's my good friend Bill. He knew what the fuck was going on because all of a sudden I would walk out of the bathroom with these really rosy cheeks from my handprints.
Also, who takes 15 to 20 minutes to do a dump? Like, that's a long time.
I've known people who, like there was a lot of times working on the air where somebody's like, hey, can you cover this for me? And it's like, yeah, sure. And then like 20 minutes later, you're like, how long are you shitting? Like, Jesus Christ, man.
That begs the question, how many people are actually taking naps? How many? There might be more napping going on than you think.
Dude, I'm telling you.
I think there's a lot more phoning. Like you sit down, if you take your phone, are you allowed to take your phone? Like we got to finish. But like, I didn't think, because I don't work in an office space, but I'll take my phone to the bathroom and then be like, damn, it's been 10 minutes. But I know there are people who take their phone to the cubicle, it's a cubicle.
To the stall.
To the stall, sorry. And that's their break. They take 10 to 15 minutes and they just scroll through Instagram or whatever your jam is for the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's what they look forward to every day.
Oh, well, then your job sucks.
That's like, fucking sad.
Like that's iffy. Like, well, I mean, like there was one of the lumber yards I worked at. Like the only time you ever got a break is if you were smoking a cigarette.
Right.
And so it was kind of like, all right. So if I want breaks, I gotta smoke.
Right. So that's what you did.
Yeah, you smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's go through these really quick. What was question number 1?
What was your biggest regret?
I don't think I have any regrets.
Not a single one.
No, if I really think about it, I'm pretty sure I would see some things that I wish I may have done a little bit differently. But I don't want to have any regrets because everything that I've done up until this point has made me who I am right now. And while I'm far from perfect, I fucking love who I am right now. Like I enjoy the version of me that's here, and this version of me wouldn't exist if I had done something differently, which is essentially a regret.
Yeah, I think regret for me, the only regrets that I hold on to are moments that you can't get back. Just little things. I don't have any major ones. Little moments where you're like, I wish I'd Rage Against the Machine.
Fuck.
That for me was like, I wish I'd.
Again, if I really thought about it, I think I could probably find a few things where I was like, I kind of wish this went differently, or maybe we'd done something different here.
And then what popular saying is total bullshit? You said
everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason.
Fuck. No, it doesn't. Things just happen. How you react to that dictates the results. Like this thing didn't happen, so you could do this. This thing happened, and then you chose the path to accomplish this task. Like, if you need to live by that saying because it gives you comfort, that's fine. But I'm never going to live by that because that means that there's a lot out of like my life that is out of my hands. Now, I do understand that there's certain opportunities that only come to light because something happened. I mean, that's fine. But I think a lot of people are like, well, like everything happens for a reason. No, it doesn't. Shit just happens. It's just it depends on how you react to it.
The good mindset hack for that is when some shit happens that you don't like, and most people might say, well, you know, everything happens for a reason. Instead of saying that, you just look at what happened and you go, okay, what can I take from this?
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Just just say that instead, and then you'll get through it with a very different set of outcomes.
I'm good with that.
And then what quote changed your outlook on life?
Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. Which, I mean, technically you could do if your tooth breaks off. But this is from Alan Watts, and I listened to a lot of fucking Alan Watts. He was a philosopher. He was one of the a driving force of kind of bringing Taoism and Buddhism and things like that over to the West. And if you want, if you're already on YouTube, or if you're not, go to YouTube and type in like Alan Watts chill step, and what you'll get is it's these speeches from him with really cool, relaxing music in the background. I use it frequently to fall asleep. But there's other times where he starts talking about something where I'm like, oh fuck, like this is amazing. Like I love this. But it's good shit. Alan Watts, go check him out.
You said what song is stuck in your head right now was the Jackass thing. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. CKY.
And then what is a lazy?
Well, because the CKY 96 Quite Bitter Beings, that song was playing in the car today as I picked up my kid. And so when it was in the middle of it, and we pulled into the driveway, and my kid asked me, "Hey, what's that song?" And I go, "It's 96 Quite Bitter Beings." And she's like, "What?" And I get I don't know what you're talking about. And so then she asked if it would be available on Spotify because she has a kids account, and it doesn't, all the restricted stuff. Although Boss Bitch was apparently a perfectly acceptable song for my 10-year-old. Thanks, Spotify. I had to take it out of my fucking account.
And then you asked for a lazy river. What is a lazy river?
Oh,
what is that?
Dude, that's like when you go to like a water park or something, and it's just it's essentially a pool that eventually kind of just goes in a gigantic circle, but there's jets kind of pushing you, so you can just
Yeah. That's what you want.
That's all I want, man.
That's all you want. That's what your retirement is.
And if it could technically be a moat around my house, all the fucking better.
Yeah. Yeah, like, now we're talking.
Drawbridge.
Now I'm digging it. With a drawbridge. Dungeons and Dragons all the way.
A lazy river that has like a jungle vibe to it. Oh, like a lazy river that's designed like the Jungle Cruise in Disneyland. Except you could just jump in a fucking inner tube and float. Fucking amazing. Backside of water. Nailed it. Yeah.
All right, well, that was 5 fast questions on the History of Rock remix. Fucking A.
All right, so you guys can expect these weekly when I record properly and I actually get my microphone recorded. I keep kind of doing this just to make sure that it is. So this episode will probably, today should be Wednesday if you're listening to it when it finally dropped. That's going to be Wednesday. Coming up on Monday, Shim and I are going to be discussing Limp Bizkit. Originally, I was just going to jump straight to Significant Other, but as I was doing it, I was like, there's so much more that we got to talk about because you've got to talk about their first album. You also really need to talk about that whole controversy, if you want to call it that, around Counterfeit and money being spent to a radio station, which I am fortunate enough, I worked with Al Scott. He was the assistant program director and music director at the radio station that was involved with this. So we're going to get to all of that stuff coming up on Monday's episode. Make sure you guys are checking out our shorts on different social medias, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'm at The Real Brandalorian on most social media except for TikTok. TikTok, I'm at Goat the Brandalorian. You can find Shim on YouTube. It's at Shim on More. Or you can find him on Facebook or Instagram, just at Shim. Look for his blue check mark. By the way, I am now over 1,000 followers on Instagram, and I'm thinking about requesting a blue check mark.
You should totally do it, man. Join the club. It's amazing.
I'm just saying, like, it's like
free flights.
Look, if I want a lazy river, step one is getting the blue check mark on Instagram.
100%. You get it. You'll be fine.
Right. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day whenever you're listening to this. Thank you all for being here. Say goodbye, Shim, because it's almost.
Do we do? His name is Brandon. He's the rock. He's the rock star. He's rocking it like the rock star.
His name is Shim.
The social
He's the DJ.
Numbers, crushing it up. That's it. Class dismissed.